Now that Nightmare Reaper's Chapter 2 has been out for a little bit, I thought it was about time to make another tips and tricks video as well as a boss strategy video because I played through it about 3 times and it's time to update that video. It's not relevant as it could be anymore. So over on my personal channel, not that you have to go there or anything like that, I'm not even going to link it. That was where my video was. This one's going to replace it and it's going to be both tips and boss strategies all in one video. So the thing is that I don't really have a good list of things that I want to talk about. It's just going to be kind of rapid fire. So I'm just going to give you some tips for Nightmare Reaper first in rapid fire format. For the first tip, manage your expectations for the skill tree. It does not make your character more powerful so much as it makes it easier to play through the game under certain circumstances. The most important points on the skill tree are going to be keeping weapons of higher quality, the dash, the air dash, and making your dash invincible. Those are the most important things and should probably be gotten first, and they all exist before level 5 on the skill tree, which means that you can get them all in chapter 1. If, for instance, you don't want to find all the treasures or you just didn't get enough money to reach all of those things, once you get to chapter 2, money grows by quite a bit. The treasure value and the coin value are worth much more, and you'll get money much quicker, being able to, after the first 3 levels of chapter 2, fill out the entirety of skill tree 1 through 4, just like that. Obviously, you can spend your time finding treasures, getting all the monsters, and getting enough money to buy most of the skills before chapter 2. Just to let you know, you don't have to. You can easily get those things, but those are the most important things. Dashing is extremely helpful for movement, just in general, being able to keep yourself on the move so that enemies can't hit you. It also helps you get across large gaps that you wouldn't normally be able to get across. Maybe it's just easier instead of riding a platform or going across the stage. You can just dash and jump, which is a function in the game, dashing and then immediately jumping to send yourself flying over gaps. It's also a positional tool, being able to put yourself in the correct position if you are in a room full of enemies. Making your dash invincible is also extremely helpful because the second you're about to get hit, if you dash, you take 0 damage. This is very helpful for bosses or for tight situations, or when you can see an attack coming, then you can use the dash and you'll be invincible. And of course, the air dash. Being able to jump in the air and air dash is very helpful because even if you mess up dash jumping, you can jump and then dash. That's the ultimate tool, is being able to control exactly where you need to go. And luckily, when you dash, you do not dash in the direction you are facing. You dash in the direction you are pressing. So if you need to dash to the left, dash to the left. If you need to dash behind you, dash behind you. But keep the enemies in your crosshairs. That way you can continuously damage them. And of course, keeping weapons of higher quality. And by that I mean higher levels. So weapons that are level 1 aren't nearly as powerful as level 2, and level 2 is not nearly as powerful as level 3. They can still be fairly powerful, especially with the right affixes, but that doesn't mean they will naturally be stronger. So if you can possibly keep weapons of higher level, do it. Once you hit that skill node in the tree, you're going to find yourself being able to keep up all the damage and fight the bosses a little easier, keeping level 2 weapons. And there are also some level 2 weapons that are very, very helpful, such as the Necromancer's Staff. Very helpful for the end of the game and just for bosses, of which I will talk about during the boss section. But being able to do that is much more helpful than keeping level 1 weapons the entire time. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, weapons with affixes are going to always be better than just a common or a green level 2 weapon. So make sure to look at all of the weapons, blue or yellow, and that will give you the best chance of survival. Even if it's a level 1 weapon, you might find something that gives you an extremely strong affix. Speaking of affixes, you need to pay attention to what affixes drop on your weapons, because every weapon is affected by affixes differently. While some weapons will find area size being a better option, maybe some weapons will find fire rate a better option. So make sure that you test things out when you pick weapons up. You have plenty of time to do that, and I'll give you a couple hints here. Plus attack is good on everything. If you get plus attack, it's a very rare affix. It will double the attack when you press your attack button, which is left click. And what happens is instead of using up more bullets or more swings, it counts as 1 swing or 1 shot or 1 spellbook use, but it fires 2 of the same attack. So you're going to do double damage. If you get a plus 2 affix, then it will be 3 attacks with 1 button press. These are very helpful, immediate damage increases, and should always be taken. If you find a weapon weapon with plus attack, most of the time, the downside on the weapon is probably not going to be bad enough to not take it. It will be much more helpful. You'll find yourself being able to do things like stun enemies more often with headshots, as enemies can be staggered or stunned with headshots, especially by melee weapons, and having 2 of them will make that much easier because you'll get more damage off on them. And I'm not sure if stagger is based on headshots alone or the amount of damage that you do to an enemy if you hit them with a headshot, but you can make a lot of enemies stagger that way. So make sure the plus attacks is on the top of your priority list. Other things to watch out for are elemental damage, because elemental damage has been buffed. Things like fire, setting enemies on fire will do more damage now and it's more accurate. Freezing enemies with the ice element, they freeze at low health values and then they will break when you kick them or hit them with whatever it is you want to hit them with. And shock, which is animation canceling. It will stun an enemy and can also chain lightning to other nearby enemies. They're all very helpful, so elemental damage is always good to get on any weapon. However, there are 2 weapons that do not follow that. 3 weapons, actually, that do not quite follow that rule. The mine, the remote mine, the cube, and the necromancer staff. The remote mine only procs elemental effects when the mine attaches to an enemy, not the explosion, just the mine. As far as I can tell, I don't really think it is, because every time I use it, that's how it works. The cube also does its elemental effects when the cube touches an enemy after you've thrown it. However, the elemental effects that are on the cube itself, the affixes, will transfer to the enemy that you release from it as well. So it's twofold. It will give it to the monster that you capture, as well as the cube itself having it. I'm not sure about the necromancer staff, though. I can never quite tell with the amount of skeletons if any of the elemental damage actually transfers to them. However, I do believe it does. At the very least, when you fire the necromancer staff, you will deal some damage to the enemy with the beam and the skeleton that pops out, so that right there will proc that elemental effect. There are many other affixes, though, and you need to look out for all of them and try all of them. And the nice thing is that you don't have to keep the weapon if it's not that great. You can use it in the level you're in, and if it's not good, toss it for some money so you can get further in the skill tree. A cool little tidbit about the cube that captures enemies like Pokeballs. Those cubes actually carry over monsters between levels. So if you capture several monsters in the last level and bring them to the next one, you can throw all of them in that level. Not only that, but if you capture an enemy with the cube, sell the cube at the end of the level, and any time afterwards pick up a different cube, that cube will come with the enemy you originally captured. The developer actually said he wanted to make sure that the cube was useful all the time whenever you pick it up, except for the very first time, of course, because you don't have an enemy captured. But that way you had more incentive to pick it back up if you found a better one. It wasn't just, oh, I get another cube, that's great, but you get to keep any of those captured monsters. So you keep capturing, it will store, I'm not sure if there's a limit, but it will store quite a few monsters. That means that the cube can be helpful for things like bosses. My absolute favorite weapon is my favorite weapon because it's so versatile. In fact, it's the go-to weapon for all of my speedruns. If I can't find a very good weapon with great affixes, then I always go for the remote control mines. Even if it's common, even if it's only uncommon, I don't care. It's a powerful tool. You can stick it to enemies, which means that you can control where the blast is, you can control how quick you throw the mines, you can attach them to other surfaces, you can rocket jump with them, and there is no reload time. Faster fire rate means you can throw them faster, but regardless, it's a very strong level 1 weapon that can even carry you into Chapter 2. I'm not sure about how Chapter 3 will be. If you get one with great affixes, then yes, but the mine is a very, very good weapon. Not only does it cause explosions, which can hit enemies around corners, it will kill most of the smaller enemies in one blast, at least as long as they are close enough to the blast to take full damage, which makes it much easier to deal with enemies. You don't even have to get close. So the mine by far is the best weapon. If you're going to be searching for one, the mine is the best. However, I do have some other favorite weapons. From the level 1 category, the remote control mines, the Molotov cocktail, the claymore, the spark spellbook, and the revolver are all my favorite level 1 weapons. Those ones are ones I go for all the time. I will use those over other things. Level 2, the heavy sniper, the katana, the fire spellbook, the necromancer's staff, pretty much any of the automatic rifles, and the chained saw, and the double axes are all fantastic weapons to pick up. And as for level 3, most of them are good. Pretty much all of them are extremely helpful one way or another, and are great weapons. An underused utilize level 1 weapon though is the whip. I know the whip is an interesting melee weapon. Melee weapons in this game, by the way, are very good. Way underappreciated. If you don't think melee weapons are good, you gotta try them. Getting headshots with melee weapons will most often stun enemies. This also comes into play with the consecrated whip, which, while its primary fire isn't that strong by itself, the range at which you can hit enemies with it, how many enemies in a row you can hit with it, and its secondary fire make it extremely powerful. When you use the secondary fire, it makes your whip catch on fire, which is supposed to be kind of like Castlevania. It will make enemies explode, or it will deal explosive damage to them. I think it will be fire damage because they catch on fire, I think. But it will explode, hitting multiple enemies all at once. And it only costs 5 magic to use, and it lasts for several seconds, which means you're not going to be able to run out of magic ammo using it. So if you pick up a whip, make sure to use the secondary fire every time you use it, because it is a very, very powerful weapon. I don't consider it my favorite, but it is a good weapon. Make sure to never stop moving. Enemies in this game sometimes seem like they may be hit scanners, but if you are moving fast enough, their shots will miss. So when you bunny hop, when you dash, when you air dash, when you grappling hook, or when you use the chainsaw's grapple, you can get away from enemy fire. And there are going to be a few times where funneling enemies through doorways is more helpful than jumping around the stage. Just use common sense, and if it seems like it's a better idea to funnel them, do it. But in most cases, if you're jumping around very fast, then you will not take nearly as much damage, and you'll be able to clear out rooms easier, especially since the tools you have at your disposal are much better than the enemy's tools. Everything in the game can headshot, so hit enemies in the head. Your kick, explosions, melee weapons, spell books, guns. I think the thrown objects you throw at enemies also do headshot damage, so make sure to go for the head, especially since you can stun enemies with damage to the head. Explosive weapons and the Molotov cocktail and the Necromancer staff all make the red crystal rooms a breeze, because hitting multiple enemies, including the crystals, will clear out the room very quickly. To complete a red crystal room, you need to kill the red crystals, any of them, all of them, and any enemies that the crystals spawn. If the enemies from the crystals spawn enemies, I don't believe those count. It's just the initial enemy that the red crystal spawns. And, as another note, always go for the red crystals first. Yes, the enemies are hitting you and killing you. No, it is not a good idea to go for them first, because the red crystals will continue to spawn enemies. And let's just say that you go for the enemies first. If it spawns too many high-level enemies, like necromancers and chain dudes, you're just gonna get your ass kicked. It's happened to me before, where I focus on the enemy and they just spawn too many. So always go for the red crystals first, then clear the room. A new addition to Nightmare Reaper is the ability to switch weapons during a reload or a charge animation of a weapon, which is extremely helpful. It was something that I was missing in Chapter 1, was being able to switch a weapon while it was reloading so that I can fire it, because maybe you make a mistake, maybe it reloads, maybe you're not ready for it to. You can switch to another weapon. So that's a very helpful addition. Alright, we have reached the boss portion of the video. Obviously, timestamps are in the description. But if you want to know how to kill the bosses, shoot them. Anyway, so there's 2 pieces of advice I think that are actually really helpful for the bosses. And the first one is going to be the Necromancer's staff that summons skeletons. I believe the Necromancer's staff on every boss except for maybe the last boss with its black hole is going to make the boss battle a breeze. See, they focus on the skeletons, or they can. Even if they don't, having a bunch of skeletons in the room makes it impossible for them to get to you. Even the second boss in Chapter 1, the fire boss, he can't really hit you with his fire if the skeletons are in front of him. And even if he teleports, you just focus on running away from him. If you are having trouble with the bosses, having a Necromancer's staff will make every boss, except for the last one, a breeze. Very helpful, and because ammo regenerates in the boss room, you will never run out of skeletons as long as you keep moving over that ammo pickup. The next tip is going to be having a large amount of knockback on your weapons, especially explosive weapons. Knockback is going to make it so that you can force bosses into corners or away from you across the arena, and they can't get to you, especially a fast firing or explosive knockback weapon. It will push them back and keep them away from you, and you can control the entire battle. Now, it has to be pretty high to keep them away from you the entire time. With the second boss on Chapter 2, the mostly stationary, slow-moving rocket boss, he moves, but it's not very fast. If you can knock him into a corner, he can't really chase you down with rockets. Although there is an easier strategy that I have found out. There are 2 easier strategies that we have found total. Me, I found one, and the other person who found one. I will tell you about those ways to do it. I'm not saying that knockback is the best way. I'm just saying that knockback is extremely helpful in controlling where the bosses are. Let's start with our first boss, Big Mama Dragon. She's really not a hard boss. Usually when you get to her the first time you fight her, you understand how it works. She sits stationary and shoots eggs of different varying sizes of dragons, and she spits poison and spins around in a circle. That's pretty much it. Anything is useful against her. Melee weapons are very quick, miniguns, explosives, anything. You can kill the dragons in the room, and you can kill the dragons before they even hatch from the eggs, if you so choose. However, there is almost zero reason to do that, because the faster you kill the dragon, the quicker you can leave. But if you sit there and kill all the little dragons, she will be able to actually produce them faster than you can kill them sometimes, because a few of the eggs, the bigger eggs, take a few more than one hit to kill. So she'll be able to produce them too fast at a point where you're just going to want to turn around and fight her. So immediately start by fighting the dragon rather than anything else. I don't really have any big suggestions other than to do what I'm doing in the video, which is circle strafe and go for headshots. This boss room, as all boss rooms will in the future, contain ammo in them where you can pick them up and they respawn, so you don't have to worry about going in with enough ammo. You will always get ammo to respawn in the boss room. This boss is fairly easy. You don't need anything special for it. Once and done, you're good. The next boss in chapter 1 is the fire boss, the fire mage. And the fire mage is still being discussed on the forums as a boss that is just too powerful, where in chapter 1 he was nerfed, once chapter 2 released, that is. So the nerf was that he lost some health and he lost the effectiveness of his area of effect fire attack. It's a little less powerful and a little less often in frequency. His other attacks are still just as deadly and just as powerful. He has 3 other attacks other than the AoE attack. He has 5 fireballs that he shoots in quick succession that don't track. The second fireball is a big one that explodes, similar to the level 2 fire spellbook, and his third attack is a melee attack. His melee attack is pretty strong. It will kill you very quickly. In the video above, you can see I get a little bit of bold with the knife and my kicks, and I think, oh, I bet I can just stun lock him. No. That wasn't what happened. However, this boss is beatable with just a common knife, as you can see here. It was a little tough, mostly because I, again, said I was too bold and decided to face tank him. That's not how you do it. Instead, there are 2 good ways to fight him. There is the hiding behind either of the pillars, and the pillars are pretty good because they block line of sight. They'll stop him from using his area of effect because you're right behind the pillar. When he teleports, you can run around the side of the pillar and he can't attack you, setting you up to kill him fairly easy, especially if you have explosions. If you can get behind the pillar and throw the explosions on the ground where his feet are going to be, they'll explode, they'll hit him, and you almost never see him in that case. The other way to fight him is to sit out in the arena as far away from him as you can, but about a foot from the wall behind you. That way, when he uses his explosive fireball that explodes, it will not deal damage to you, and you just keep going left and right, and when he teleports, dash away. That's it. He's not that hard. If you go for headshots and you have an ice weapon, even an ice or a shock weapon, that will probably be your best bet. Explosive weapons are easiest against him. However, anything can be used. I used kicks to kill this boss in my kick only challenge not too long ago on this channel. I did cheese him a little bit. He catches himself on fire. I'm not sure how viable that is now, but it is still much more possible with how much less health he has and how much less he uses the AoE attack. So just make sure to keep your distance or keep him running around the pillar. The third and last boss of chapter 1, Mr. Chain Gang over here, actually has a pretty easy cheese. I'm gonna call it cheese because I'm not directly fighting him, and honestly, he almost never gets an attack off on me if you do it this way the entirety of the fight. I kind of mess around and let him come around this pillar. However, this is how it works. You bring him over to this pillar, and if you sit kitty corner, if you sit far enough away that the quickest distance to you is over the top of the pillar rather than around, then he will jump on top of the pillar and walk down. All you have to do is watch for him to jump on the pillar and walk around to his back because he's still in the animation of coming down off the pillar. You can hit him while he's on top of it as you're going around in a circle, and he will do it again. You just keep yourself kitty corner to the pillar and him. He will always jump on the pillar and come around. You'll kind of feel a sweet spot for it. You need to make sure that you watch because sometimes he doesn't go over the pillar. In that case, you just swivel around, the pillar until he gets back on top of it and continue your little dance. Otherwise, he's really not that hard of a boss to just kite all around the arena in kind of a square shape. Just make sure that when you're walking backwards or when you're moving away from him and shooting him, you don't catch on the pillars or random rocks in the level. There are some jump pads that help, and again, respawning ammo. The first boss of Chapter 2 is fairly difficult. He has 3 different forms, all that go to full health, and he does a little bit more damage and has a little bit more health for each form, so he's a Super Saiyan. However, if you do things like save power-ups before him, that's always good. If you save power-ups before any boss, obviously, it's going to be helpful. But this boss in particular is very helpful, and it's even more so helpful to have explosives for him, because it's easiest to hit him as he's coming around the corner with them, because you're going to be kiting him around these pillars, just as I do in the video above. However, here I'm using an uncommon katana with 15% attack speed, just to kind of show that it is possible to do with most weapons. This weapon does have a secondary fire that shoots a beam out, so it's a little bit more helpful than just a pure melee weapon. Pulling him around the pillars, you can see that I have many opportunities to melee him in the head. I believe his first and maybe his second form are susceptible to being stunned by melee weapons to the head. As you can see with my mirrored katana with double attack, I'm able to stun him and he can't do anything. However, his third form I can't do anything as the mirror runs out, so I'm not allowed to stun him, and so I have to run away. And he is pretty powerful. His attacks are tough. However, after some more testing, I find that his attacks have travel time, especially his big beam that travels and explodes, which is probably the hardest attack to avoid if you're that close. So if you're meleeing him, yes, you probably need to be kind of close to get those melees off, but if you are not meleeing him, stay as far away from him as you can. Use the grappling hook, use your dash, and keep a fair distance between you and him. That way when you see him use the beam, you can avoid it. I started to realize once you can avoid it, that's all you need to do. In fact, I think I found a pretty good strategy to fighting him. What you need to do is you need to make sure that the only time you attack him is when he is trying to go up from the first level of the arena to the second level. You want to try and get into the corner of the second level of the arena. He is going to try and climb up it, and he's going to have problems, especially if you put the pillars on the second level in between you and him. So while he's on the first level, jump up to the second level, hide behind the pillar, and when he starts to try and come up, he's going to get stuck on the wall there. You can go ahead and take lots and lots of pot shots. I was just doing a pistol only challenge, and I was able to kill him pretty easily once I figured out that he gets stuck on that wall pretty easily, and I was able to get lots and lots of headshots, and then as he finally ended up climbing up, I turned and grappled away from him and eventually got him back to that point and did it again. I did it about 5 or 6 times, then he died. So I think that's probably the best way to fight his third form. I mean, his second form probably as well. His first form is really not that hard. He rarely shoots that big beam. But his second and third form for sure, take the time to kite him around the arena until you get to the second level and he's stuck on the wall, and then shoot him. Generally, he won't attack because he's too close to the wall. And of course, like I said, this one is probably the best one to use the Necromancer staff in, because he needs to move around to get to you, and he can be kited right into the skeletons, and then he'll pay attention to them. So just make sure when you use the Necromancer staff to use a combination of left and right clicks, which left clicks I believe are melee and right clicks are ranged mages. So just make sure you do that. He's extremely easy when you do that because he just cannot get past the skeletons to you. So just summon about 20 skeletons and pull out another weapon and start hitting him in the head. He'll go down pretty quick. The second boss of Chapter 2, the rocket wielding maniac thing, is way different than I thought it was going to be. Actually, as I was doing stuff for this video, I fought him once and I died, and then I fought him a second time here in the video above. As I'm dying, I'm at about 9 health. He gets caught on this pillar, and I wasn't really expecting that, and I was like, okay, well, you know, whatever. So I killed myself so I could do it again, because I wanted to see if I could get him to do it. And here's the video of me getting him to successfully get stuck on this pillar. Now, I don't know if this is going to be viable forever, so I'll have another little strategy that can help you, especially since there's another person who found a perfectly viable strategy that probably won't be changed. This one, however, might be. But you can lure him to a pillar and then hit him with melee weapons from around the corner, or explosive weapons, anything you can shoot his little legs sticking out with. And sometimes you can even get headshots. As you can see with the chainsaw, I'm getting headshots. So this is clearly the easiest way to fight him, as he doesn't fight back, and the only time he fights back, he knocks himself away from the pillar, comes right back to it, and we do it again. Now, the other strategy that I have is to just stay behind pillars and use knockback. Knock the boss away from you, stay behind pillars, let the rockets hit the pillars, keep popping in and out and hitting him in the head. He does have quite a bit of health, and it's still difficult to fight. That's about the best you can do, is to just be careful. Now, I did see this other video, and I'm not going to have it in mind, I'm just going to talk about it, but this person kicked him to death, which, yeah, okay, that's cool. That means it's possible to probably beat Chapter 2 with kicks only, as I did with Chapter 1. I'm pretty sure it's possible. But this boss in particular, I wasn't sure how it was going to work. He just jumped in a very quick circle around the boss, kicking over and over. So the boss turns fairly slowly and will fire rockets, and they're projectiles. The projectiles are slow, so when you are moving that fast and kicking, he's not going to be able to hit you with his rockets. And the other attack he has, so he has a couple attacks. He has a rocket attack, he has a small micro rocket attack that shoots multiple rockets, and then he has like this shotgun attack from where his rockets come from. You can hear the tell for that. You hear this like big clicking sound. You need to get behind something. However, if he can't turn to catch up with you, he's gonna fire it into nothing. I mean, if that strategy works for you, that strategy works. It looks like it's pretty easy. I'll probably be using it myself. It's probably gonna be quicker, but it's more reliable to do the one that I had where he sticks against the pillar. That one will pretty much guarantee you don't get hit by anything or mess up, but this other strategy is much, much quicker and probably more effective. On to the last boss of Chapter 2, the demon who shoots purple balls into your face and mouth, maybe. He shoots black holes as well. And this boss is a little different because he doesn't get affected by the same things the other bosses do. Like the skeletons from the Necromancer staff just don't do that much. The knockback is fine. However, the big deal is the purple orbs are odd. The way that they function. They explode, they chase you, they do blow up if they haven't reached you after a certain time limit, so keeping away from them is the best thing you can do. Rather than trying to dodge them, just let them follow you until they blow up. And the black hole is very difficult to get away from. If you can just understand when he's going to use it, which he does little flashing, and he usually does it after he does a bunch of orbs, he'll shoot black hole out. If you can just avoid being in the area he's going to shoot his black hole in, then you're probably fine, because it's the biggest way he deals damage to you. If he catches you in that, most likely you're going to be at half health already, regardless of how high your health is. So make sure to understand his tell, which you can see up in this video here. You can see that his tell is blinking and he fires it. He also will usually fire it after firing a slew of purple orbs. That's generally when I think he's going to fire it. So there you have it. There's some tips and tricks and boss strategies, and hopefully it helps someone. If you have any specific questions you need answered, please feel free to ask. I'll do my best. And if you want to see some gameplay footage that's live, I do sometimes stream off of this channel. You're welcome to come by and watch. I'm doing challenge streams and speedrun streams soon. I don't do them very often, but if you do want to see some gameplay there, maybe see some strategies there, ask some questions there, that's, you're welcome to. So thank you all for watching the video, and I will talk to you all later. Have a good one.